Hey guys, on May 23rd, Andrew George ended his evening lying on a porch, bleeding and in pain, only to find himself being booked in jail. And all because of a very unexpected encounter with the supernatural, followed perhaps by an expectable encounter with law enforcement. Sometimes you just want to get away, have an evening at the beach. And it was just such an excursion that brought Andrew and Natasha to the Daytona Beach Travel Lodge. If you wanted to call it a resort, you could, but to be honest, you'd have to call it the last resort. Reviews are varied and entertaining. I can't say I recommend staying there, but I do recommend reading the reviews. Anyway, Andrew and Natasha are settling in the room when about 30 minutes after checking in, Natasha heard the bathroom window opening and thought someone's trying to break in. Andrew and Natasha decided this did not meet their expectations of the Travelodge last resort. They ran out of the room and went to the front desk where they demanded a refund. Some argument followed, but the managers did refund the money. However, this moment of success quickly turned to horror when Andrew and Natasha noticed a shadow behind them. Thinking this was the person, at this point they still themselves could not bring themselves to imagine the supernatural nightmare that awaited, who had tried to enter their room. They ran across the street, down Fremont, finally ending up on Beach Street, where they made it to a 7-Eleven. How horror movie-esque. Andrew had already started to think this was no normal street violence, but rather their pursuer was of the great beyond, a ghost not present in our dimension, and for some reason unknown, in pursuit of Andrew and Natasha. At the 7-Eleven, they asked the cashier for help, but very quickly they saw the shadow ghost again, and they knew the 7-Eleven was not an oasis of safety, and they needed to run again. They made it to the Halifax Marina. There they ran around the parking lot trying to avoid the shadow ghost. Andrew was faster, and he was soon ahead of Natasha. What happened to chivalry? But they say speed kills, and Andrew found himself falling or jumping in the ocean to escape what he was now sure was a ghost bent on harming him. The ploy worked, and Andrew was safe as Natasha caught up and helped him regain dry ground. Now, this area wasn't safe, so they fled it. They went to a residential area. Natasha started banging on the door of a house, which was actually business. Andrew picked up a chair and threw it at a window. With no quick entry, Natasha went to a neighbor's house and banged on the door there, seeking help from the person chasing them. During the commotion, the resident of this house heard Natasha screaming for help and went outside. There she saw Natasha and Andrew on the porch of the business breaking a window. Natasha then turns and sees this home dweller and screams, "Please help me." The homeowner says, "Hey, well, what's going on?" When she said that, Andrew noticed she was there and he started running directly at her. He fell over some bushes and the home resident was able to retreat inside her home. She managed to shut and lock the door just before Andrew started kicking it and banging into it, shouting, "Let me in." The home resident, having reached the limits of Southern hospitality. Does Florida even have that? Well, she went to the window next door and told Natasha, "If he comes through that door, I'm stabbing him." And she had a knife from the kitchen. Natasha made the wise decision to dissuade Andrew from further trying to get into the house. I mean, a ghost is dangerous, but a homeowner with a knife is also pretty dangerous. It's no easy choice. Andrew says he was only trying to get help because of the ghost, but that he decided, this is what he's telling the police, he decided to stop trying to get into the house when he heard children's voices because he didn't want to scare kids. He also said, and I think this is an even better excuse, that God prevented him from getting into the house because he was hanging out with Natasha, who was a bad person. And that makes a lot of sense. He also told police, by the way, it's not really material, I think, that he'd taken ecstasy. And that's why God was not protecting him from making bad choices. Now, you may be like the police and say, wait a minute, there was no ghost. This is just a bad reaction to some bad junk drugs off the street. And you'll probably cite facts like Natasha telling police the cashier was an older white female, but the actual cashier was a 30-something black male who said he didn't see either one of them that night. Or that Natasha admitted seeing several cop cars while they were running around, but she had no reason why they didn't seek help from the police. Or that Natasha said after running to the 7-Eleven, they ran into Andrew's father, stopped and talked to him for a bit. Yeah, you're skeptical, right? Yeah, well, sure. Roswell was just a weather balloon. scrambling memories and having a cashier appear as an old white lady to the victims, yet a younger black male to the police, is well within the capability of an evil presence, so powerful it can take physical form. Go ahead, be a denier. Blame it on drugs. With Andrew facing burglary charges, if the case goes forward, the jury will have to choose between two equally plausible scenarios. First, scenario A, Andrew, who has a criminal history involving allegedly punching his female cousin, being involved with drugs, burglary stuff, running through people's backyards screaming. Well, that he had an episode with ecstasy he took either because he has issues with ecstasy or the off chance the street drug was not properly QC'd, had even worse stuff in it, that this was just a bad reaction to that. It's scenario A. Or scenario B, Andrew was selected and targeted for reasons unknown by an evil, ghostly entity focused on catching him and harming him, and he was simply trying to seek refuge and help under the most exigent of circumstances by busting into an occupied dwelling. What a tough choice. I'm glad I'm not in that jury pool. Will the DA even care, or will this case languish and then be dismissed or pled down to basically nothing like most of these seem to be? We'll just have to see. Well, that's it. Stay safe. Stay away from the supernatural. Thanks. Bye.